Hey everybody, today's video we're going to be going over the Warrior Ascendancy classes, looking at what nodes you might take first during your campaign, as well as what endgame versions of those same Ascendancy classes might look like. Hopefully this will be a shorter video, and we're going to start off with the Titan. I played Titan in 0.1, and then swapped to Smith in 0.2. I put a good amount of time into both, and then the least amount of time into Warbringer. But we got a chance to play it this season, and the community was pretty helpful in telling me like certain combos that you'd go with the Ascendancy points, as well as what builds you might run them on. Starting with Titan, we're going to look at the first 4 nodes that you can take, 2 of them being defensive, 1 of them being offensive, and then another one just kind of being a pathing node. Up in the left, we're going to start with Stone Skin, 50% more armor from equipped body armor. This is really strong for getting your armor up to where it needs to be during the campaign. If you have armor applies to elemental, this increases all of your basically hit damage reduction from physical to elemental. It got definitely buffed in 0.3 because of how much armor applies to Ellie is on the tree now, as well as on gear. So definitely maybe a better defensive point than in previous seasons. The offensive node you can take is Earthbreaker, so 25% chance for slam skills you use yourself to cause aftershocks. I would have to look into this, but I don't know if this is additive or if this is a separate aftershock with the support gem. At this point in the campaign, though, you're not going to have too much aftershock chance, so this would be a great offensive pickup if you're interested. The pathing node is Colossal Capacity. You get like a little side inventory, and the only reason this exists is because of how strong Hulking Form is, but we'll get to Hulking Form later. Because it doesn't add too much during the campaign, you're probably never going to take this first. Up next is Crushing Impacts. Your hits are crushing blows, and what that means is if you hit an enemy and you get them into the primed for stun range, you just instantly heavy stun them instead. So this notable just makes it way easier for you to stun enemies. When it comes to deciding if this is offensive or defensive, it could go both ways, right? The more enemies that are stunned, the less they're hitting you. The more they're stunned, maybe the more damage you do based on conditionals, etc. So this is an interesting one to pick. It's not like directly clear what you might use it for during the campaign, but eventually if you get surprising strength later on, same deal with Hulking Form. These two kind of go hand in hand. And then the final notable is just 15% more maximum life. We'll talk about how this compares with the Smith node later, but because it is more, this is always just a multiplier on your life. Again, very strong defensive. I believe it was probably stronger than Stone Skin in previous leagues, but Stone Skin having access to armor as Ellie means it's probably way more competitive. So depending on what you're playing, if you're going slam skills, definitely Earthbreaker off rip is pretty strong during campaign. And we can look at why, because it leads into Ancestral Empowerment. This skill got buffed with the new support gems. It got buffed with the new skills on the tree. So Ancestral boosted skills are insane this league. And this makes it so that if you use your slam skill, let's say it's Rolling Slam or Earthquake or I think Earth Shatter as well. If you use it once and then use it a second time, it's automatically Ancestral boosted regardless of any other circumstances. So you could put the Ancestral boosted to 3 support gem that says, it takes like 14 seconds to boost it on your attack, and then Ancestral Empowerment will just make it so that every other one gets that benefit. The damage increase is huge. The area of effect is huge. So if you were in softcore and you wanted to go heavy on offense, these 2 notables back to back would put you at pretty ridiculous damage headed out of campaign. If you're not playing softcore and you're looking more hardcore, I think Stone Skin is actually a pretty good pickup now. You get this around Act 2, and I feel like my builds normally go something like, I feel like I've around here. In Act 2, so I'm wondering if we can do, like, how far could you go up here at this point? This is around Act 3. Yeah, so there is a world in which you have armor applies to Ellie on like 30%, as well as just stats on your gear. Could make this a first pick option on hardcore. Again, Mysterious Lineage is just great overall if you need more life, but it really depends. The quality of life for going Titan and then picking a defensive instead of taking advantage of the insane Ancestral Empowerment line, or the insane stun line, or hulking form, right? Makes me feel like Titan is better late game. So hulking form would require you to kind of give up these 2 points and then pick this going out of campaign, which is less than ideal. Instead, you might do something like figure out a build for Titan that you want to play in the end game. Start on a different class first if you want to focus on defense going through campaign on hardcore, and then just swapping to Titan afterwards once you have the gear, once you have all the setup for armor applies to LE, etc. Now, getting back to hulking form. So how hulking form works is 50% increased effect of small passive nodes on the tree. Small passives are these nodes. So it is notables that aren't the attributes. This does not scale strength, int, or dex. It is the small nodes that path to your notables. And then it does not scale up the notables or the keystones. This incentivizes you to path less on the tree. It doesn't overly incentivize you to do that. There are places where you still do want to path, but it does just make every single point on the tree more impactful, allowing you to benefit from nodes that are close by as opposed to pathing further out in order to get something like Area of Effect, where all of the notables in this range might just be boosted to the point where, okay, I'm good on Area of Effect. So when it comes to hulking form, if you're looking to scale nodes on the tree, and let's actually turn it off so you can see this. The nodes at the start are 8%, it's 10% and 8% melee damage. If we turn hulking form on, again, instead of calculating it yourself, you can just kind of take a look. The 10 goes up to 15, the 8 goes up to 12. And for these notables, it's the same increase, it's 50%. But because the numbers themselves started low, hulking form is really good for conditionals that have much higher damage increases on the tree, right? So empowered attacks deal 24% increased damage compared to either the 10% or 8% nodes from the start. These are insane for hulking form. If we tick it off, it's base 16, so it's 6% higher initially, and then it goes up to 24%. And the reason why this is really strong with Titan is because ancestral boosted skills count as empowered, which I was not aware of. Community, let me know. That's again, I'm still learning, and this combination of setup with certain points on the tree should make any of your skills, any of your slam skills that your ancestral boosted, do a ton of damage. There's a good amount of increased empowered small notables, and all of them are like very high in damage. There's other ones I'm trying to think. I think damage against our enemies with fully broken armor, again, a very, very high damage notable. If we tick it off, it starts baseline 20%. You tick it once for the hulking form, and it goes up to 30% increased damage. You're getting 10% increased damage for free just from taking this notable. So if you go hulking form, try to prioritize the more high value notables in the tree, as opposed to the more generic low notables. So when it comes to like a softcore endgame builds, this would probably be a really strong setup. When it comes to hardcore, you're gonna have to weigh, how much defense do you have versus like this stone skin just seems so strong defensively if you're looking to boost all of your elemental and physical damage reduction. So I'm not sure how you can take this and take Ancestral Empowerment. But Earthbreaker really isn't as important as hulking form, so there's like this weird kind of trade-off going on. My guess is you'd give up hulking form on hardcore. And we can pull up, I'll pull up PoE2 Ninja to just see what a majority of players are going in softcore and in hardcore. So pulling up PoE2 builds for softcore Titan. For some reason, there's no visual on it, but on the left here, you can see passives. And 97% of the characters that are being picked for PoE2 Ninja, I don't know how it pulls them up or if you have to like authorize it or whatever, they're going hulking form. 60% are going mysterious lineage, and then down here, stone skin is taken by 44%, as well as the trade-off with Earthbreaker here. So if we go back and look at what that looks like, it's most likely something like this. Like this is a very common build setup for Titan, sounding like the swap between stone skin and Earthbreaker is the most common. So some build setups are like this, some are like this. I do want to go see how many people take Ancestral Empowerment, because I'm very surprised that makes no sense to me. It's showing 21% of builds on PoE2 Ninja are taking Ancestral Empowerment. I don't know if it's because people don't realize that you can't, or like it doesn't, Ancestral boosted counts as empowered. I don't know if that's the issue. I don't know if it's because people don't want to give up the defenses. But this node to me seems like the sleeper node for 0.3. And I think more people should be doing this. I might now make a build for this in softcore. I've been thinking about doing a video on the potential end game for Warrior right now. I haven't looked at too many build guides this league, but I think there's an insane version of this character out there that could just blow screens up, just become unkillable, etc. Titan itself is something that I'm not familiar with defensively, but depending on which items you can go for, especially in the late game, the armor applies as Ellie should take care of most of your defenses. You don't have to focus on max res as much. It'll be harder, but again, I think the end game ceiling for Titan is probably higher than Smith. And part of it is because of Ancestral Empowerment. But maybe you just don't need the damage. So that's why people aren't taking it. Not really sure. When it comes to crushing impacts, again, it's based on heavy stunned enemies. So this would be something good for like a boss killer. You could rip these two off, go like this even. This could be some kind of boss killer, just something like, probably this would be the full on boss killer setup. I think I was doing this for like auto attack for a while. If you pair crushing blows with shattering blow as well, anytime you heavy stun, you just break all their armor. You're essentially just stunning and breaking and gaining endurance charges and spending it. Like there's a whole setup for this wheel. I would say mess around, try it out, but from a general like power standpoint, these are the lowest priority nodes, I believe, in the Titan wheel. But okay, I think that's going to do it. We're going to move on to Smith. So Smith of Kitava is the class that I've played the most. I think it's the best class for new players. It's definitely one of the easiest classes to level up defensively. And that is all because of this skill, this notable Smith's Masterwork. It forces you to only have a normal body armor, so normal being a white piece of armor. In campaign, that's totally fine. You're not really looking to continue to have like the best rare that you can afford at any given level, so you're normally wearing shitty gear anyways. So if you put on a normal body piece, you can then augment it with these notables here, and it changes as you progress through the campaign. So when we're talking about Smith, once you hit Act 2, you can technically grab this, grab a body armor, and then click on any of these two resistances, and essentially just cap out your resistances during the campaign. Pick one to focus on your gear. So if you have, say, a bunch of fire on your gear, click lightning colds, and boom, you're good. This setup is really strong. It's also really strong when it comes to your next set of points, right? Going Smith's Masterwork initially, it kind of makes it really difficult to go anything else when you're in the campaign because of how strong all of these notables are. So given that, we'll just go through each of them and where you might focus on picking them up throughout the campaign. So again, these first three on the right are just flat res. These are really strong in Act 2. Your next set of points, again, you can pick up more resistance if you want, but I would definitely go Molten Symbol. So body armor grants 25% of physical damage from hits taken as fire damage. If we're looking at what you might take next, it would be Molten Symbol. This is incredible. 25% of physical damage from hits taken as fire is a massive reduction in your physical damage taken if you have maximum fire res. If your fire res is capped out, it's just the like no-brainer next point to take. And then at that point in the campaign, you also might be hurting on strength for certain aspects. This is around maybe when you look into getting Giant's Blood. So support straps is really strong. You can also go just max life if you want it, depending on what you're doing as well. If you care about chaos damage, dedication to Kitava is insane. Flowing metal is just a really generally strong skill. 50% of your armor now applies to elemental as well. So again, as you're going through the campaign, you can stick with Smith's Masterwork, pick up the res that you need, move to getting physical damage reduction through Molten Symbol, and then this fourth point, you can kind of bounce around to whatever you want. The weakest 3 points on this tree, I believe, are Heat Proofing. Ignite, you can just mitigate through fire resistance. Leather Bindings, 3% of maximum life per second. I do not value max life per second as much as I value Leech or potentially Recoup. And then Heavy Bracing. This is just, you can get Stun Threshold anywhere else, don't need it on the tree. Internal Layer is very strong if you're going into maps in the endgame where by default enemies have a lot more crit and crit bonus. So sometimes there is going to be a point where you might just want to swap one of your off pieces. So if say you're going dedication to Kitava, on certain maps you might want this if there's extra chaos damage, but you can swap to reduced crit bonus damage if you're going into a specific high damage map. Okay, so again, during campaign, you might hit something like this for the first 4 points. The next set of points, again, I might still put here. So you're getting to this point where it's like, well, this seems boring, right? Like Smith of Kitava, this body piece, you're building it up. It's just a bunch of stats. And then even here for the next set of points, it might just still be more stats. So Coal Stoker, modifiers to fire res, also grant cold and lightning res at 50% of their value. What you can do with this is at some point in the campaign, if you have enough fire resistance on your gear, it becomes essentially all res at 50% of the value of the fire res, and then you can just take these 2 points off of the body armor, either allowing you to put them into, again, more generically strong nodes on the tree here. So you could go armor applies to chaos, armor applies to Ellie, crit damage bonus reduction, the fizz damage, life, strength, all of this good stuff, swapping off of the more generic resistances. Or, and this is the end game of Smith, you rip these points off and put them into Forged in Flame. Forged in Flame is one of the strongest defensive notables in the entire game. The hard part being that you have to get your maximum fire res up. In softcore, it's much easier to do. I'm currently going through hardcore Smith of Kitava solo self-found playthrough. So I guess it's trade. Sorry, it's trade versus solo self-found. If you're in trade, you should be able to get this easy. You can get fire res on your belts as a corrupt. You can get a jewel that gives you 5 to 6% maximum fire res on the tree. That's against the darkness. You can check my Smith of Kitava build character where I go over that more in detail if you're interested. You can get it on jewels. You can get 2% from the heart unique jewel this league. You can get, I think this is a big update. They finally fixed unnatural resilience. So this gives you 2% max fire res and works with Forged in Flame now. So this is a huge pickup. And they also added crystalline resistance here. So you can get +3 on the tree really easily. +3 from belts. You can get +3 from your rare shield or +5 from a unique shield. There's just tons of ways to get maximum fire res. So the end game version of the Smith, if you're going for a very defensive playstyle, could look something like this, right? You have increased max life, increased strength, which is also increased max life. Armor applies as, to elemental damage. But this one you could also swap to chaos, crit damage bonus reduction, etc. That's the 1 point that swaps around, but you're always taking Molten Symbol. It is just insane for fizz damage reduction. So this is a really common path that you might take as Smith. And then if we want to look away from this setup, what it actually might be is something more like this. You put points into like armor applies as elemental damage. You forego as much maximum fire res as possible for armor as your main elemental damage reduction, and then you are able to put 2 points up here into any of these other very niche skills. I don't have too much experience using any of them. I do know Living Weapon has been just in general very weak. Minion players have looked into using it, like depending on the weapon type, each weapon type has its own skill. It does seem like a very unique minion setup, but there just haven't been any builds yet. But I'm assuming in the future somebody's going to make it work. They're going to tweak the skill. They're going to tweak minions. I saw in the leaks running up to 0.3, there were like unique warrior specific minion supports that just didn't make it into the game. So I think they're trying to create some kind of like warrior based minion build that maybe in the future Manifest Weapon will play into. At the moment, there's not too much. When Smith first came out, I thought I was going to do a Temper Weapon build. Temper Weapon is a buff. You sit there, you smash your weapon on an anvil, and then it empowers the next set of skills, I think like up to 7, to do a combustion, which is a bunch more fire damage. So this is kind of for auto attacking builds. The issue is that if you're using this in mapping, you have to stop every now and then and hit the hammer. If you're using this for bossing, you're just better off using a bossing skill specific for doing single target damage instead of using your auto attack. I mean, there are definitely ways to make this work. It just feels like they initially released it in a different form. They tweaked it to apply in like a different way, and I think they just kind of moved away from their initial vision on it, leaving it in like a weird limbo state. And then finally, Heat of the Forge. Moving on to Heat of the Forge. This one is the most interesting to me in that I have never taken it, but I think you can make very strong builds that use it right now, where Detonate Corpse, I believe, is a fire skill. If you're going Ignite, you could potentially just plug in Flammability, I think, the curse here. I don't know if it's still called that in PoE2, but like fire spell on hit is one of the ones that I think could be the strongest. I just haven't run a fire / ignite based Smith build yet in order to take advantage of it. I'm also not familiar with how the energy system works for spell on hit. I did try to plug this into just a random build I was doing, and it seemed like it was never really casting the fire spell. So just feels like a very different setup than your normal warrior, which is what all 3 of these kind of do. Temper Weapon being the one that maybe is most common or most similar to your other, either like your Titan setup or your basic Smith setup. Whereas Manifest Weapon takes a very specific build, and then Fire Spell on hit, again, takes a very specific build, I think. That's going to do it for Smith. Again, I have the most playtime on Smith. I've been really enjoying the progression on Smith and your ability to sort of go from, a certain set of Ascendancy points and then tweak them as you progress. On my hardcore character, I just unlocked Forged in Flame, and the reason being Unnatural Resilience got changed. Prior to this, I didn't know if I had enough maximum fire res at the time, but got a good rare shield with +3 on it. Grabbing this for the +2, I had 2 jewels with maximum fire res, and then crystalline resilience to get +8 total, which is really strong when you're talking about boosting elemental damage reduction. So swapped over finally, and I am now cruising. Let's pull it up on PoE Ninja. So what we're going to see on PoE Ninja for the Smith, which is really low. Again, made no sense to me. This to me, I blame streamers. I really don't get why Smith isn't played. 90% of builds are going Coal Stoker. That makes sense to me. That's kind of in your setup. Your final like 2 points of the Ascendancy are almost always going into Coal Stoker just to make your life easier. 80% of builds are going Smith's Masterwork. Again, this to me is like a 100%er, but if you're not going the body armor, that means you're going for a very unique playstyle, which is awesome, right? Smith, in that way, I feel like hasn't been explored too much. Maybe there's some crazy stuff you could do, but good to see. The life is up next as being the most taken, which again, a little surprising. Strength, Molten Symbol. Okay, so we went through. Molten Symbol is 60%. I'm surprised by a lot of these numbers. Molten Symbol should be 100%. Forged in Flame being 35%. None of this makes any sense to me. This to me reads like nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. So I might have to put out another build guide. Something on here that I did want to note, and we can actually go back to the tree to show it off, is that the body armor node, Kitavan Engraving, Kitavan Engraving is an increased maximum life. So this is different. This is only increased. This is different than the Titan more maximum life. So this one's going to stack with Unbending Fear. It's going to stack with Behemoth. It's going to stack with any Spectrum notables you have, or Spectrum jewels you have. Trying to think of where else you get it. It's going to stack with your socketed increased maximum life soul cores. Whereas the Titan one is just the more multiplier. So Mysterious Lineage is better than Kitava Engraving by a long shot, and that's why you can get this for only 1 point instead of the full 2 Ascendancy points from the Titan. That's going to do it for Smith. Let's move on to Warbringer. So Warbringer is the Ascendancy that I have the least experience playing, but I did play through it on hardcore recently. It had a really fun time, as well as a good... I got some good feedback from the community, so I know way more about this than I did like a month ago. Again, looking at the first nodes that you can take. Anvil's Weight, really simple, just your damage now breaks armor. Really strong for certain setups. You can get this on, I believe, on weapons from an Abyssal mod at the moment. So the value of this one probably did go down a little bit, but still really strong. Next up is Jade Heritage. You get a Encase in Jade skill, which is something that works based on stacks. So gaining a stack of Jade means you're gaining, I think it's 1% physical damage reduction, going up to 10%. So you can think of Jade Heritage as a physical damage reduction talent in a similar way to Stone Skin being physical damage reduction, as well as Molten Symbol. So each of these ascendancies has their own variation on physical damage reduction. Jade Heritage is really strong in that you can use its Encase in Jade skill to get 60% more maximum life as guard at any given time. So you can kind of use it as a guard skill, similar in PoE 1, where if you expect incoming damage to like skyrocket, you can click it before that. Use the guard to take that damage instead of your life. Yeah, really strong overall. Next one is Answered Call. This is specifically for totem builds. I was running a totem character on the Warbringer, and when I clicked this, I didn't know what to expect, but I had a lot of fun with the Ancestral Spirits. When you put a totem down, it just starts making little dudes. Little minion guys. It's a skill, you can support it. Sometimes it spawns a turtle, which are fucking sick in this game, like the ghostly turtles from Act 4. Sometimes it spawns a bunch of dudes with like war cries and shit. The one downside to this notable, I feel like, was it did, depending on how many totems you have, it did make visibility kind of rough. So I couldn't really tell what enemies, AoE was versus like my little Ancestral Spirits AoE. A little wonky there, but overall really fun if you're going for a totem build. Next up, we can look at Renly's Training. So 35% base chance to block from equipped shield instead of the shield's value. This is really strong if you have a unique shield, where by default, its base chance to block is really low. You could just juice it with Renly's Training. Technically, it's also just really strong if you're early in the campaign and the shields that you have low block, but I wouldn't think this is too high value at the moment. You're most likely not taking this first. And then the next first node that you can take being Warcaller's Bellow. This is something I didn't really think about as being a very strong offensive notable, but it actually is. Warcries explode corpses, dealing 25% of their life as fizz damage. If you have increased fizz damage, I believe that's going to increase that damage as well. But the key here is that you ignore Warcry cooldowns, making it very strong for an Earth Shatter build or a Shield Wall build. You can essentially do the playstyle of Earth Shatter twice, Warcry, Earth Shatter twice, Warcry, over and over again, not having to worry about either spending endurance charges or rage to keep your Warcries off cooldown. And then a very similar thing to Shield Wall twice, Warcry, Shield Wall twice, Warcry, etc. So this would be a very strong notable to take first if you were going for an offensive build, followed by maybe Jade Heritage for the physical damage reduction, or Anvil's Weight if you want to follow it up for even more damage. The points that you can take after, so after Anvil's Weight, is Imploding Impacts, which allows you to break enemy armor below 0. This is just a physical damage increase, as well as potentially a fire damage increase if you take the Molten One's Gift. I don't know if fully broken armor applying to fire damage hits means that all broken armor applies, because this doesn't actually seem like it works in the way that I think, so maybe this is mostly for physical damage builds. I'm not super sure. I just know that this isn't too common to take, and I think we'll take again a look at the PoE Ninja heat map and just double check on this, but overall, this is just kind of quality of life, in my opinion. You can get ways of breaking armor elsewhere, and then breaking armor below 0 isn't do or die, at least at this point in PoE2. From what I know, maybe that's wrong. Maybe this is an insane notable, but yeah, I'll have to take a look. The node behind Answered Call is kind of insane. So it's just 20% of damage from hits is taken from your nearest totem before you. This is 20% reduced damage, just straight up. If your totems are very strong and they just can't die, this is insane. I don't know how high of durability you get totems on totem builds. I assume pretty high, but Wooden Wall, incredible defensive notable. Something like this would be a really strong defensive setup if you're going for totem builds. Yeah, just not too familiar with the current setup. And you probably wouldn't take this during campaign just because it's hard to keep your totems alive without investing too many points in them. And totems right now aren't very good at bossing, or at least they're not very good at bossing with low investment. So in the campaign, it's pretty hard to get this rolling. So maybe more of like an endgame build. And then the final set of points is once you get Renly's Training, you can go to Turtle Charm. And this kind of got tweaked in 0.3, right? So in 0.3, they changed maximum block by default from 50% down to, from 75% down to 50%. Turtle Charm puts it back up at 75%, and now you don't need to worry about maximum block scaling, because even if you get more maximum block from the tree through something like Vigilance, it's not actually going to change your max block chance. This just sets it to 75% forever. The downside being that you take 20% of damage from blocked hits. What you might not realize is that this synergizes with certain other skills, and the only one I know of right now, and it's been called out in my community as being really strong, is Made to Last. So 25% of physical damage prevented is recouped as life. So how do you prevent physical damage, right? Blocking does not count. So blocking physical damage does not count as preventing it. Neither does blocking with Turtle Charm, right? So because you're taking damage, it doesn't all of a sudden make the other 80% of damage that you've blocked suddenly prevented. I'm pretty sure I tested this in 0.1 and 0.2. However, what this does do is that now at every point you were going to fully block physical damage, so 50% of the time max prior to this, it was just going to be completely blocked. Instead, you are now always taking a percentage of physical damage that you can then prevent, right? And because of how armor works, armor is incredible at lower damage numbers. So what this is saying is that now 75% of the time when you are taking physical damage, instead of it being fully blocked and ignored for something like Made to Last, you're now taking 20% of it. That 20% is being prevented by as much armor as you have. And again, armor works way better at low values, thus scaling made to last much higher, right? So this is essentially a notable made perfect for Turtle Charm. So if you're a Warbringer and you were taking Turtle Charm, please take made to last. And if you're a Warbringer who wasn't taking Turtle Charm but you're struggling with defenses, maybe look into it. Turtle Charm also works really well for notables that give you, flat life gained when you block. I think life recovery when you block over here as well. There's mana recovery when you block, etc. There's unique shields. The surrender, just recover flat percent life when you block. So juicing this up to 75% is insane, but looking at it like the chance to block on it's even higher than 35. So you can get a low roll one with like a really good corrupt or something. I don't know. Anyways, made to last plus Turtle Charm, big ups. We're going to pull up Warbringer on Pee-wee Ninja, take a look. So most of them are going Anvil's Weight. So this makes, I was underselling it. It seems like this is a very strong quality of life for builds. Makes it really easy to just get armor break. Most of them are going Jade Heritage. So again, very strong generic defensive notable. Physical damage incoming is one of the hardest things to reduce. So 10% by default, really strong. 50% are going Renly's Training. Again, that makes sense to me. 50% going Answered Call is kind of cool. That means there's a lot of Warbringer totem builds. But where is Turtle Charm? Turtle Charm's around 30%. So again, people are looking into it. It's definitely not super niche, but not everybody's taking it. War Callers, similar spot. So it's definitely broken between like totem builds versus shield wall builds is my guess. When we look at, okay, so Wooden Wall is actually, it was taking a good amount. So that is going to be those same totem builds. And then the one that I was really curious on is Imploding Impacts, and it's only 18%. So I think it is not as good as you'd expect. But again, overall, really interesting to see how this played out. But yeah, I think that's going to do it. Again, all three of these ascendancies in 0.3 are really strong. When you're talking about defensives, when we're looking at Warbringer, one thing I did want to check is how many people are taking Turtle Charm and Made to Last. Not Anointed. Okay, so for some reason this won't show it. But I think the heat map does show it, right? If I take this off, the heat map changes. Yeah. So if we take Turtle Charm and then we hover Made to Last, only 20% of players who are taking Turtle Charm are taking Made to Last. I think that number should be way up. And I wasn't fully aware or fully understanding that myself when I was playing through it. But I never got to the point where it's taking Turtle Charm. During the campaign, I just took 2 Ascendancy points, and then we have yet to transition to maps. But yeah, really strong pairing that doesn't look like too many people are taking. I think that's going to do it. Again, all 3 of these Ascendancies in 0.3 are really strong. If I had to rank them for new players, I would say Smith is really high up there in terms of quality of life on any build you want to play. When it comes to your more classic warrior archetype, Titan is it. If you want to go for slams and you're just getting into Pee-wee, Titan is very strong and like visibly stronger than other classes with this Ancestral Empowerment. But again, I'm surprised that not many Titans on Pee-wee 2 Ninja are taking this. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a Titan playthrough. And then Warbringer is sort of the more niche, kind of unique class. You can do totems, you can do the more Warcry heavy style of play. And then it does come in, built in with some generic defenses. Anyways, I think that's going to do it. Again, like, subscribe, Leave some comments if you like this content. I'm going to try to keep this going. Again, one of the things I do see a lot is do this for other classes. I'm just not somebody who can just kind of casually make these claims about like every single class in the game. Like I don't fully understand even the warrior class. So how can I do that for every other class in the game? It's just too much. So in my current niche, it is kind of this 1/6 of the tree, as well as diving pretty heavily down into this other slice of the pie under mercenary. So I know about 2/6 of the passive skill tree in a way that I would hope. This is going to constantly change during development. We're still in early access. The ascendancies are going to change, and then we're going to get new ascendancies as well. So from this notable, we're going to get Marauder, or like from this starting zone, we're also going to get Marauder. And then from this starting zone, we're also going to get Duelist, I believe. Those are probably going to be the next two classes that I focus on as Path of Exile 2 expands. But yeah, again, thanks for all the nice comments. I'm going to try to keep playing, putting out videos with content describing things that you might not understand, trying to show you combos that you might not realize are really strong together. And then whenever I see something like the Titan, Ancestral Empowerment not being taken super commonly on Titans, and I think that maybe that's the wrong thing to do, I'm not going to just start calling people out. What I'm actually going to do next is I'm going to boot a Titan up and just go play it and just see how it feels. So that's going to be my approach to content creation, playing PoE2, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy. I've been live streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm trying to put out 2 videos a week, Monday, Friday. And again, like, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.